Hey guys, welcome. It's that time again. It's time for On Social, the show that talks about everything that has to do with professional live video on the social atmosphere, the social medias. I guess I could say social medias. Uh, I'm joined, as always, by my partners. I have to say partners now, but my partners in crime. We've got Mr. Marty McPadden from PodJam.tv. Welcome.
Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Doing well. And we also have with us Mr. Jeffrey Fitzgerald from JeffandHighDef.tv. Welcome.
Hey fellas, what is going on?
The three amigos today.
Yeah,
We're back. We had a great show last week with Greg, and the show before that we had Joe Zahitis on with us, and we've got a whole new guest coming next week. And we're gonna get to him a little later on, but it's gonna be fun. We got a lot of viewers sending in videos, so it's great. Keep them coming. But guys, before we get into this, I want to kind of share a little bit with you guys of what's going on. And the folks at Telestream were super, super happy that they allow us to do the show. And one of the things that they asked us, they said, "Hey, guys, we want to see your Wirecast setup." And if you didn't see it on social media today, they posted out that they are looking for Wirecast setups for the website. And if you're fortunate enough and your picture looks great and it meets these requirements, they're going to allow you to put it they're going to put it on the website. You're going to get that up there. So what they're looking for is a 3,000 pixel wide picture in the highest quality as possible. No people in frame. We don't want to see anybody. We want to just see the Wirecast software in frame. And guys, they want to see something clean and professional, right? So that's something we want to make sure we put out there. Also, later on in the show, we have a guest, but before we get that, we're also going to do a giveaway coming up. This will be our first giveaway, and I know a lot of you guys have asked about this PTZ Optics webcam. Some of you guys asked last week or the week before that, what was the quality? Well, our good friends over at PTZ Optics has sent me the webcam. I'm going to do a review of it, and then after that, we're going to give it to somebody out there. So what you need to do is go follow, like all of the Telestream platforms that are out there on social media, not the Wirecast, the Telestream ones on LinkedIn, Facebook. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll get a point or an entry for that. If you share it and tag 5 friends, you will then get another set of entries. So it's very important. We want to see you guys tag 5 friends, share it, get it out there for your chance to win this. And I believe it's the 20th of this month. Our social media folks are going to make the announcement of who wins this camera. We want to get back to the community. So that's coming up. So make sure you guys look for that. And then later on in the show, we're going to give you the viewer video of the week. We've got Lee, and he's going to be joining. Well, he's going to show us the video. Next week, he's going to be joining us. So, guys, I'm really excited. We've got a lot going on, but it's good things, right? It's a good set of I don't want to say problems, but it's a good set of things that people can win, right?
hey, it's always
Absolutely.
cool when there's giveaways and people have a chance to win something that you don't have to spend money on, and it's going to up your live video game. Hey, it's more reason to watch, right?
Well, that's it, and we want you guys to know that we've been listening, right? You guys have asked us. You said, "What's the quality of this? What do you guys think of this?" So, I'm going to put a review together. I'm going to show it, and we're going to post it on the Telestream blog. And there's going to be a bunch of different places that you're going to check that out, and we're going to give it to a lucky viewer out there. But the only caveat is it's U.S. only. Sorry, guys, if you're outside the U.S., that's the unfortunate part. But it is U.S. only. So make sure you watch Twitter. They're going to be posting about that. So I know Marty's like, well, I want to win it.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to hearing the review. I know that PTZ. I'm running a PTZ Optics camera myself for my main camera. I know Stephen, you run several of the cameras from the folks at PTZ Optics, and this is brand new for them. So webcams. I mean, a webcam is a great solution,
Yeah.
especially to keep the cost down if you're just starting out. And webcams have gotten very sophisticated. So I know the quality of the PTZ Optics products. It'll be very interesting to see what they've come up with for a webcam. It's great to see them entering that realm and that kind of that space.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how this turns out, but I'm excited for it. So, getting into the topic today, you know, we kind of were kicking this idea around, and we said, there's so many times we talk to people, right, that wait until the last minute. They're using powerful software like Wirecast. They're using uh, SDI routers. They're using all kinds of different equipment, and they're putting everything together. And guys, they never stop to think, should I do a dry run or should I test this? I mean, we gave an example a long time ago, Marty, about when you were doing that video in Leipzig, Germany, and you asked myself and Mark Rogers to come on and do that with you. You and I spent many weeks testing video latency. We even did a dry run once you got out to Germany, and so that the audience could hear us and we could hear them. I mean, there was a lot involved. Um, I want to kind of send it to you. What are some of the tips that you've got for the folks out there watching when it comes to this sort of topic?
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. And this also applies. I know you mentioned SDI routers and high-end setups, and even what we were doing with Lipstick Germany, a lot of high-end stuff going on and back and forth, and that's why we had to test a lot of different. We were kind of making up workflows as we went along and kind of creating things to be able to do that. But this also applies to people just starting out, people who may be using a web-based solution. Um, these tips can also apply, and these workflows can also apply to that. I mean, one of the things I see people, I think, get lulled into a false sense of security. They look for the simplest product or simplest solution, and they want that one button solution, which is great. And there's a lot of simple solutions out there, but also is very, very important that doesn't replace being prepared or waiting till the last minute. And again, if you wait the last minute, that's when problems come up, and you can eliminate a lot of those problems by not waiting for the last minute. So what I did, I put together a list here, and I'm looking to the side of my notes here, just some of the things that may come up if you wait for the last minute. What can happen? So I'll start out with this first point. A lot of people do shows that involve bringing other people in as remote guests. And so what can go wrong there? Well, your internet bandwidth can go wrong with remote guests, especially people that may not be used to being on camera, may not be doing video shows on a regular basis. Maybe you are. So what could happen? Well, I mean, they could have internet. Internet is everything. We talk about all the time. That's the first thing I look at when I'm doing something remote or doing something even with you with my setup. Is my internet good? So one of the things you always want to do is you don't want to wait till the last minute. You always want to test that connection at least a few days in advance. Pick a time when both of you are free. Hook up with that person, test your connection, test it in the same location and same connection that you are going to be using when you're live.
Hmm.
So if the person's going to be in their home in a certain room, especially if they're using Wi-Fi, make sure they're in the same location, same setup, so you know if there's any interference or whatever. Test it. Same thing with you as the host. Make sure you're using your setup that you're going to be using, preferably even the same time of day, because lots of times with internet it can vary. The connections can vary. So do that. The other thing is
Well,
doing
not to
this
stop
will
you on
give.
that, but to add to that,
Yeah.
my kids were home over the summer, right? And you were kind of laughing because I said my son likes to game. He got into that. I had a no internet policy for that hour of doing the show. And I'm like, guys, this show you can't be on the internet. You got to go do something else. Go out and play. It was because you have to take those necessary steps.
Exactly, especially on the upload. My upload, I think I get 10 megabits per second on the upload, and that's enough to do my one stream up. But you got to watch that. It's not unlimited, and especially if someone's uploading, maybe someone's sharing a video, uploading. You want to watch that upload and download speeds, and then the use on your network. If you're sharing your network with other people in your household, you got to make sure your usage is good, and make sure who's using what bandwidth. I mean, the other thing is we always mention is if you can be wired, especially on your
Mhm.
end, but you may not be able to control that on the guest end. Everyone's on Wi-Fi. I've done it with clients. You can't really change that. So testing is the next best thing. So test that. Make sure they're close to the router. Try to mitigate what you can. And then if you're doing it ahead of time, that gives you time if you run into an issue, and chances are you probably will, gives you time to troubleshoot and mitigate any challenges you may have with bandwidth, and try different things to try to mitigate that and try to test it before you go, or fix it before you go live. Jeff, I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that, but
No,
yeah,
you're hitting all the cylinders. I mean, one of the biggest things I've seen, even people that I've worked with, is going into a room. Like, you might be going into a ballroom. You're going to live stream this big event, and so you go in there and say, "Hey, I want to check the bandwidth, but you're doing it on that Thursday morning when you go to do the site visit, and then Friday night there are 600 people in the room, all with their phones, wanting to get on the same network that you're on, and then all of a sudden you have no bandwidth, and it's 20 minutes before the show, and you got to make decisions on if you're going to drop the bit rate down or if you're going to do something different. And those are the kind of things that a lot of times people have very focused intentions on their checklist, but they don't think through really putting themselves in that environment when they make that checklist. And that's really where I think you can get caught a lot of times. And the only other thing I'll say, Marty, is I saw a meme yesterday that I loved, and it said, "Be brave enough to risk being lousy at your first show." Great, but part of not being lousy is backing it up a little bit, taking a little bit more time getting into it. Don't put new products in that you don't understand, and you know, take a nice, focused, intentional approach. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to come away with something you can use, certainly, and probably something you'll be happy with. So,
Let me ask you guys something, because John Mahoney, a good friend of ours from the Streaming Alchemy show, he left a comment and said, they have a pre-show checklist. Do any of you guys use, and even folks watching this, do you use a pre-show checklist? I know myself, I don't necessarily have a physical checklist. I have one in my head because I've done it so many times that I know when I start at the studio, it sounds funny, but I start back with the external monitors and I turn all them on. I move forward, turn the cameras on. I move forward and turn the monitors on the front of the bar. And then I come over here and I turn all my rack equipment on, and then I turn the lights on. And like, I have a regiment that I go through. Even at the end of the show, these guys will tell you that um, I will actually change the date and the episode number after the show because it's fresh in my mind. And I don't want to get in and next week and you guys go, well, last week was episode 16. Why does it still say that? And last week was September 5th. Why is it,
yeah, yeah.
it's things like that are easily
No,
overlooked, not necessarily the gear, right?
no, totally. I mean, for me, my main checklist on doing this show is if you guys are giving me strange looks, I know you can't hear me. So that's like, number one right there, right? But no, it's, you get into a cadence, you begin to understand what you're trying to do. And the more you do it, the more repetition, you take with it, it becomes more natural, and you begin figuring out where those pain points are. But, like we've talked about, usually it's audio, or there might be a frozen picture and you've got to log out and log back in again, those kind of things. But, obviously for where we are at this point, we're fairly well versed in it, and it's more of a mental checklist. But there's no doubt you've got to have a checklist in mind on what you're trying to do ahead of time. Otherwise, you're going to be doing it while your guest is talking, wondering why he can't see you, or you can't hear each other, and that kind of thing. And now you're tap dancing while you're trying to figure it out and hit a button over here without anybody seeing your hand move, and things like that. And so it's just really, it's like anything, straightforward approach, common sense, and putting the planning into it will pay off in a big way.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And to add in to what Jeff said, I too, with both of you guys, I think we all have mental checklists because we've been doing this a long time. In the beginning, it's incredibly helpful to literally write it down, write out your
Yeah.
checklist. And the important thing is, and I think both of you mentioned this, is you want to make it a routine. So over time, and Stephen, you mentioned this too, you do the same steps in the same order, including changing the date. That's a great tip, including changing the date on the lower third, because you do it the same way every single week. It gets done properly, so that you don't have to go back and check it 20 times. You know that because it's just the same routine over and over again. And a lot of this stuff, when you're doing shows, it's the same workflow, same routine. And that's why it's important when you're creating your workflows. That's why it's important to create workflows, practice your workflows. In fact, that kind of gets me into this into one of our other points there. I'm going to go down to point 4 on the list here, but not being familiar with the equipment and how it works. The important thing there is, and that's a mistake, the important thing there is creating workflows, being familiar how your equipment actually works, your software, your equipment, creating those workflows, practicing those workflows to make sure that they become routine. And that way, and doing the same thing all the time, that way it becomes second nature. And Stephen, you raised the thing about muscle memory. And we've also come into situations where past couple weeks we had a little difficulty with the audio because again, you have so many things going on, and you have a lot of muscle memory, a lot of routines, and you discovered, oh, there's a kind of a flaw there, and actually a software flaw that really has nothing to do with you. You discovered it in the macros, but then you came up with a solution to mitigate that and say, well, now I know when audio is going out and when I'm on mute, and because you have to mute it for certain things. But you address that, and it becomes part of your routine. And I can't overemphasize. So the analogy I like to use is is if you're a musician or if you're learning an instrument, you don't go buy a guitar and know how to play it, and the guitar doesn't play itself. You buy the guitar, you learn how to use it, and you practice your routine, you practice learning, you practice music, and then over time you get better. Stephen, with your setup, and the reason why you can actually produce the show and host it and do everything you do and all at the same time, make it look easy, is because you've practiced it,
I
and you
think
don't wait till the last minute.
I think too, I don't change my setup. I think that's something that I was talking with a colleague at work, and one of the things that can really hurt people a lot is by every week changing your setup, changing everything, your whole workflow. Because what's going to happen is nothing's going to work properly. I mean, like you said, I added those visual bars for audio. That's not really changing my setup because that powers on when I power on the monitor. It's not anything else I have to do. I just had to
Yeah.
run wires. But when you physically change your setup, like okay, I've got my cameras this way, and let's say I tear everything down this week and move it to the other end of my studio, you're gonna have problems next week. I can almost guarantee there's gonna be problems next week. You don't want to do that. Stay consistent, right?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a situation like that where consistency is king. I mean, we hear that all the time. And even something as simple that you would think is simple, if you're new to this, oh, I'm going to update my Adobe software right before I do something, or I'm going to update Wirecast or run any of those kind of things. Those updates are there for a reason because they are changing things. Even though you think it may be a little 20-second run and the time to do it may not be a problem, you end up finding things don't work right, and that alone can be a major time waste, and certainly put a delay and a monkey wrench in your live stream for sure.
Absolutely.
Just to put a capper on this particular topic, and you raise a good point, Stephen, as far as getting routine and not changing your setup. I think that one of the areas that comes into play is I know a lot of people get anxious, especially if you're just starting out, and you just want that quick start guide. You want to just start and stream and ready to go, and you want to do your show.
Mm.
And I get that. It's because you're excited and you really want to get going, and then you end up just kind of piecing it together, cobbling it together, and it may work and you may get it to work one, but then again, you don't know how everything works. Then you're changing because one piece doesn't work right, and then you have to it's like putting these patches on there instead of just taking the time well before your show, create your workflow, practice it, knowing how it actually works, knowing the signal flow. We talked about this on other shows. Know the signal flow, know how your software works. I know it's a pain. It's not the most glamorous thing in the world to do, but believe me, you'll be happy that you did that. You took the time to learn how to do it because then you want to have a replicatable process.
Yep.
And know and do the same thing every time. And then when you want to make a change or maybe you want to make a production element change, you can change that because you know where it fits into the puzzle and you know where it fits into the workflow. And then it's easier to change because you actually know how it works. But cannot overemphasize that enough. Like what you just said, as far as you start with even the way you turn on your cameras. So important because then you know how everything works. It's almost like the space program where they had the checklist and they go through each, and it seems redundant and it seems, like, oh, why do I have to go through all this? But there's a reason for it, and it shows up in
Yep.
the end result.
Before we show the viewer video, you have another topic on here, and guys, we're going to get you this whole list. There's going to be some things that we didn't cover because we're only got a half an hour, and there's a lot of good information here. So we're going to make this available for you in the comments section on the description of the videos on YouTube and on Vimeo. So make sure you're subscribed so you can get that information. But Marty, you have on here just because you're familiar with live and you kind of I'm paraphrasing, doesn't necessarily mean that your guest is familiar with live just because maybe they've done live video. So and I want to preface this to people. I don't think it's a bad idea if normally you take a half hour pre-show, maybe you should do an hour pre-show or go live an hour before the show, or at least get on the call with them an hour before the show. Make sure that they're dialed in, make sure they have a grasp of what they're supposed to do, even just if it means coaching them, getting the camera position correctly and they're not doing a 80s selfie where they're kind of setting the camera like that so they're constantly looking, things like that, or putting the microphone like a shotgun microphone and it's not a shotgun microphone, right? Those types of things,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. I can tell I can share what I do, especially with clients. So what I always insist upon if I'm working, with especially if you're doing this yourself and you're the host, and this is assuming that you're comfortable with your setup and you got a good setup and you got a good workflow. Your guest probably isn't unless they're doing a professional show, but even so, your show is unique. So what I always do is I always make time to get on with the guest and or host if I'm working with a client a completely separate from the show date. So it's usually at least a couple days before, and we do it not only and I kind of approach it like a technical test, but then I coach them through everything, Stephen, that you said. And many times I'm gonna have to coach them like get your camera up, make sure your microphone's there. If you have a mic, make sure your lighting, and go through all that stuff. Also talk about what to expect on the show. So I might be doing the test and I might be producing for a client and I'll discuss, okay, expect the host to do this and here's what you can expect there, just so that they're comfortable and and go through all that and talk back and forth. And then on the show day, I always make people come in at least 30 minutes before. And I tell them, let's establish the connection, and then it gives you a chance to talk with the host. And even if you don't need to be there, you could always leave your connection up, and then if you need to take a break, come back 10 minutes later and we have the connection. And then especially if I do a lot when I'm working with clients to do live streaming, we tend to go on Facebook and we tend to schedule in advance, and those scheduled in advance shows go off right on time. So if you're going at 2 o'clock, they go off at 2. So I keep them honest with time, but I get them in there, and that's another check to make sure that, okay, the test that we did before, is it still working the same way, or do we need to address anything?
And
You
Jeff,
know, and then that way we have that buffer. And so what if we don't need the whole time? They can go off and do their
right.
thing. Well, we leave the connection up. I'm telling you, it's worth the extra time, because then your show and the people watching it, they don't know, and it's gonna have that better result. Because once you hit that live show, and I didn't get to the other thing, we're having a plan B, but then you don't have to go to your plan B, and you have a nice smooth
Well, and
experience.
and Jeff, you do a lot with firefighters, and obviously they're not video people. I mean, do you have a similar regimen?
Well, the work I do in the fire system with the strategic marketing is really around the leadership and not necessarily the operational people on a fire scene. But it doesn't matter whether it's that or if it's any particular kind of guest. Marty hit it spot on. You've got to connect with them ahead of your show to do a tech test, and that's a great time too to kind of get more information in terms of content. You don't want to go over your questions and things and ruin the real interview, but there's a lot of opportunity in that planning up front from there and being able to just work with them. I've worked with clients before that took one look at their setup and said, you know what, tomorrow coming in the mail from Amazon is going to be a camera light and a microphone, and this is how you're going to use it. And then I'll work with them to get them set up. And then once you're done, a little bit of work here and there, it looks a lot more like TV. At least people are in focus, they're clear, you can hear them really well, and that kind of thing. But it goes miles toward your own personal brand, because now both people look really good. And everything he said is absolutely what you need to be thinking about in order to have the kind of show you really want.
So, guys, these are some of the tips. They're not all the tips, but we're going to try to get you guys. Well, we're not going to try. I'm going to put it in there. The rest of the tips, Marty's got a great list of things, and I know I'm in agreement with it. I know, Jeff, you've seen the list too. And I mean, it couldn't have been written any better. So we're gonna provide that to you guys to go over that. But there's just not enough time in one show, so we want to make sure we get that to you. But what we want to do right now is we want to show you our guest that's going to be coming on next week and some of the questions that he has, and he's got a pretty cool Wirecast setup. So we're going to take you to that right now.
Hey guys, I just wanted to share with you a cool little system that I've created here in my den, and also the playroom for when the grandkids come to visit, that is being very effective. So what I'm doing is, on a weekly basis, I do a 5-minute health update segment on the local news talk station. So the way this works is, I've got my little Canon Vixia camcorder set up with a device called the Parrot Prompter mounted on front of the lens. I'm using a Google Nexus tablet as my teleprompter device, and it's got this nifty little Bluetooth remote so I can control the speed of the copy, etc., etc., etc. Lighting is pretty simple. I've just got three lights. They're all fluorescents, and of course you can see behind me just a simple chroma key green muslin backdrop. Now I do have some ceiling-mounted lights that were just there, and so I put them to use as little backlights to help make the give the depth of the chroma key shot that you guys have talked about. And of course, Marty McPadden and I are sharing the same backdrop, our chroma key graphic in the background there. It looks pretty cool and seems to be working well. So the way I'm doing this is we connect to the radio station via Zoom video conferencing. So I bring the radio host into my system via Zoom and then send that out to Facebook using Wirecast. The radio station picks up my audio from Zoom and broadcasts that out. So we're live on the air and on Facebook at the same time. It's a pretty cool little system. It's working well. It's been pretty reliable. Had a few little hiccups and glitches. I found that if I don't resize all video down to match my canvas size, my processor pukes and it just gets to be a mess. So I have to be careful about that. But I'm also able to use full screen graphics pretty effectively. I use Canva, the online service canva.com, to create these little placeholder graphics. And then, of course, you can use other things. For example, in this particular episode, I have an over-the-shoulder graphic because the story involved a chicken who unfortunately killed a woman in Australia. So that's how that's going. And then, of course, we've got the two-shot with my guest in the other box there, as you saw on the example. So there are some challenges, some technical glitches that I'd like to work out, and maybe we can talk about those at some point. But just wanted to share this cool little setup. It's working quite well. I'm impressed with what I've been able to accomplish. You guys can do the same. None of this gear is terribly expensive, and I hope I've given you the impetus to get going and give it a try. The best thing you can do is just get started.
Hey guys, we're back, and I got to say, Lee has a pretty incredible setup for a one-man production and what he's doing. I'm really excited that we get to talk to him next week. I think it's going to be a fun show. I really do.
Yeah, Lee is an incredible. Yeah, he's an incredible guy. Marty, go ahead. We can both rave about him here.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, yeah, he's a total pro, and these are the folks that I mean, he is pretty advanced, and he's obviously an on-camera professional. But yeah, it's great to hear from him, and we're gonna have him on next week's show and really kind of get into this discussion. I know he's got some questions. I know my bandwidth's flaking out here, so
No, yeah, that's all right. So one of the things that we're gonna do, and he's got a bunch of questions next week that we're gonna hope to address. I know, Jeff, you did say you've been working with him on other projects and whatnot, so it'll be really interesting. And this is something that we want to do. Just because you send in a video doesn't necessarily mean you have to come on camera, but we want to give you that option. We want to be able to say to you guys, hey, come on and join us here, and we'll give you our undivided attention for the show, and others will learn from your questions. So we definitely want to do that. So we encourage you guys to send that in. So
yeah, I mean that's exactly what we're looking for. Steve, it's one of these things where live streaming takes many different shapes and forms. The form that we have is what a lot of us are familiar with in terms of what TV has looked like and what we're doing to make it more innovative and more interactive and things like that. But if you're doing studio-based production or you have an interest in this kind of thing, let's see what you're doing, and don't be afraid to bring things up, because the truth is, every single show before one of the shows, I logged in, 20 minutes before the show. The first thing Steve says is, hey, your audio is not sounding the way it needs to sound. And you're always going to find ways that you can learn and make tweaks and grow. And we grow in community. And so if you got the ability to shoot something and to ask some questions, do it and let us see it, and let us help you make that show all that much better.
Absolutely. Great point. I can't touch that. But I will say this. Joe Zahitis, who was a guest a couple weeks ago, has done a great job of soliciting all you guys, letting you know about our on social Discord room. And that is I have a monitor right in front of me with that chat room there. We want to encourage you guys, go join us on Discord, because it's something that you can stay logged into all week. And what we're trying to do is build a community around the on social. So if you have questions and you want to pick off of other people and say, hey, I'm having problems with this, we're going to do our best to try to get in there during the week. We haven't been, but we're going to try. We want to be able to engage with you guys. It's a place that we could have a central chat, no matter whether you're watching Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching this, LinkedIn, you have a central way to access guys that know what they're doing and can help you with your production, and it's a great way to interact even with us. And Joe's like, oh, I have questions, he's saying in the Discord. But there's a couple guys in there, they're like, yeah, we're ready to kick butt in here. So it's a great way that we can centralize everybody and be able to interact with you during the show, because as Marty and Jeff will tell you, it's very difficult watching all these different chat rooms, and we got to do it, but it's also great to have a central chat room that we can interact with folks and throughout the week. So I just want to put that out there. So guys, we got to wrap it up. It's been a great show. So keep in mind of the giveaway. Watch social media for more instruction. Get out there, start liking the Telestream Twitter page, the Telestream LinkedIn page. Subscribe to the Telestream YouTube. Get yourself in for the chance to win this great camera. I'm telling you what, I was playing around with it. I plugged it in. I didn't really do a lot of testing, but I'll tell you, pretty decent camera. So for you guys wanting to get involved with that, get in there. We'll get that shipped out to you later this month. But make sure you go and subscribe, follow, share this out, share that post out. Get out there, get your photos in the Telestream so they can use them on the website. Again, we can't say enough. They've been really great to us. So again, Marty, thank you so much for joining us here.
You caught me drinking.
I caught him. Yeah, I was just showing how laid back he is with his seltzer water. So it's okay. We're allowed to do that once in a while.
That's right. Thank you, Stephen.
Guys, make sure you go follow him over on Twitter at Marty McPadden. And I know Jeff is trying to get it in the shot, but I didn't know if he was doing it on purpose. There we go. So he's making it feel better. He's saving you.
That's right.
You guys can
You
follow.
gotta have fun, and live is live for a reason.
Make sure you guys go check him out. He's Jeff in High Def. You can follow him just about everywhere. And guys, you can follow me as the Tech Buzz. I'm pretty much everywhere. But we really appreciate everybody coming out here and joining in the fun. Remember, send in your topics, things that you want us to cover. Send in your videos. We'd love to hear from you and see what you have going on. And we'd love to talk and try to help you through your process. Even if they're marketing questions, we get marketing people on here. That's the future. That's what we're going to try to do here and coming up. So, guys, again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on social.